All right, everybody, welcome. Today, I'm pretty excited. We have Nick from Squid Router joining us. We're going to be talking about ecosystem integrations. That being said, I'll probably go ahead and just hand it over to Nick because he's the one you guys are here to hear from. How you doing, Nick?
Hey, Austin. Yeah, thanks for the intro. Nice to meet everyone. I'm Nick. I lead our integrations. So working with the 100 chains that Squid has integrated, tons of partners and wallets like MetaMask that use our API and SDK and widget. And I'm here to kind of walk you guys through what Squid is, how we leverage Axelar, and how you can integrate Squid into your own projects to allow cross-chain routing and allow users to acquire any tokens they want, to onboard liquidity across chains, to deposit, and all this is happening in one click. Yeah, so Austin, if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and share a screen and we can start walking through what Squid does.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, feel free to go ahead and start sharing down there. I think there's that present button. There's like a share option and then an upload option. Share's probably easier.
Okay, great.
All right, and you are up.
Cool. All right, hey guys, yeah. So again, I'm Nick. I lead our integrations. We support Squid is a cross-chain router, and what we do is unlock cross-chain payments and liquidity. So what this means is we allow protocols, projects, users to leverage their liquidity and tokens on any chain and move them to any chain and any token on that chain. And under the hood, we are leveraging Axelar's network in order to allow this execution to happen. And so Squid to date has securely routed 4.5 billion in liquidity and transaction volume. We've done this for 770,000 users, a lot of users, 100 chains, tens of thousands of tokens, and we operate in the EVM, Solana, Bitcoin, XRP, and Cosmos ecosystems. And the people who use Squid are people who care about security, speed, and pricing. And yeah, going to kind of dive into the technology behind Squid and what allows us to connect all these chains and how we do it securely and what the future of Squid holds as well. So some highlights. We pride ourselves on being a simple, like chain abstracted solution. So basically what Squid does is it builds a transaction on a source chain and allows that user to execute a transaction. And in one click, we'll swap through pools, we'll bridge, and then we'll swap through more pools. And on top of that, you can even add contract interactions like staking. So if you want the user to stake that token on the destination, you can build that into a Squid route. And all that is done from one transaction and click on whatever source chain, wherever that user's liquidity is. And we're able to now do this in sub 5 seconds with Coral, which is our new intent swap protocol. And that is also being secured by Axelar. And we have integration methods such as our widget, API, and SDK. The widget you can get live in, I can do it in sub 30 minutes for a project with like a simple iframe integration. We have more complex integrations where you can use like a React or Vite integration with our widget. If you want to use our API and SDK, which is for more custom builds and flows, let's say you want to do these contract interactions before or after the Squid route, that's when you would use the API, or if you're an enterprise solution like MetaMask, they use our SDK. So yeah, those are like kind of the three integration options. And then lastly, our integrator distribution network. We're in hundreds of projects, hundreds of tokens, support Squid routing, and are leveraging our widget in order to let their users acquire their token with their liquidity from any chain. And lastly, we support fiat on-ramps. So this makes it for users in any jurisdiction to onboard their fiat into on-chain liquidity, and then they can leverage that liquidity and swap between tokens. Let's see. Yep. Okay. So how do we do this? We connect 100 ecosystems with mainly 4 different routing techniques. Our newest is Coral, which is our cross-chain intent solution. And this allows us now to have sub 5-second cross-chain swaps, and also offers SEX-like pricing and reduces the actual transactions on source and destination chains to simple transfers. Next, we have Axelar, and Axelar is what connects most of our routes. They connect our Cosmos, our EVM, and also allow us to go to Ripple. And we are doing this via the GMP layer and their messaging layer. And yeah, they pretty much are where we started and where we continue to focus a lot of our efforts and growing with them as they connect more ecosystems. Next, we have Chainflip, and Chainflip allows us to currently go to Solana and Bitcoin. We are leveraging them, and then we also combine Chainflip with Axelar, where you kind of have this multi-hop route. So let's say you have Bitcoin and you want to go to like Optimism. We'll use Chainflip to get to an EVM ecosystem like Arbitrum or Ethereum, and then from there, we'll leverage Axelar to go from one of these EVM ecosystems to somewhere like Optimism. And lastly, we also utilize CCTP. This handles extremely large USDC bridging, and also bridging to Noble, which is the Cosmos USDC native deployment. So this kind of just gives a visual representation of how this is working. Coral is often used in like parallel with Axelar's GMP layer, and allows us to get to places like the XRP ledger, XRP EVM, and also the other EVMs. And then, as I mentioned, we get to Solana and Bitcoin with Chainflip. And then to get to the Cosmos ecosystems, we're often using either CCTP or Axelar to enter through Noble or Osmosis. And then we can use the Cosmos PFM packet forwarding modules to allow users to transfer tokens between Cosmos chains. And going a little bit deeper, we are leveraging Coral, which is our intent system, and leverages market makers on these different chains to fulfill these orders. So you can kind of think about it where a user wants to swap, 500K of USDC into Sui, which is an ecosystem that we are connected via Axelar right now, via ITS. And we are able to do that through market makers filling these orders. And let's say these market makers don't hold the tokens that a user wants to swap into. We'll use Coral or GMP as the bridging layer. And then from there, we'll have these post hooks or contract interactions, which allow us to leverage DEX pools. And we aggregate 110 DEX sources to allow us to go that kind of last mile to allow users to swap into, more abstract tokens. You can often think of these as meme tokens, protocol deployed tokens, and we aggregate this liquidity. We do our own native aggregation there, and that allows the users to swap from the bridge token into whatever token their user wants. So as I mentioned, we covered, I guess now 120 dexes on these 100 plus networks. And this allows us to provide, best in class pricing for the tokens that users want to swap into. So you can imagine a user bridging and then swapping into that token via an aggregator on like one of these destinations like 1inch. Instead of them having to do that bridge action and then interact with an aggregator, finding the best liquidity and doing that swap, we do that all for you. And we build that into a transaction message, which is shared via our widget or via our API and SDK, which then the projects let these users execute. So now I'm going to take you guys through some of the resources we have, or I guess after I finish this deck. I'll walk through our widget and our widget studio, our API and SDK, and ready to run examples, which allow you to get started and allow you to interact with these tools. So we'll talk about post hooks after this slide and kind of dive into the nuances there. And then I'll let you guys loose. I'll show you guys where you can get your integrator ID, which is your API key, to allow you to call the Squid API via the widget or via a manual endpoint API call. But before we do that, I think what makes Squid so powerful and what I want to highlight is our contract calls. So we call these post hooks or pre-hooks. And these are kind of like the swaps that happen before or after the bridges, but we open that up and make it even more flexible where you're able to call like an Aave vault. So let's say you want a user to withdraw from an Aave vault on one chain, take that liquidity, bridge it, swap it into USDC on another chain, and then deposit that into another Aave vault on a separate chain. You can, again, do that in one transaction. And you can leverage our pre-hooks and post-hooks, which are detailed in our documentation, to allow this kind of abstracted contract flow and also cross-chain flow where users don't need to really care about where their liquidity sits or where it goes. They're just able to execute this one transaction, which aggregates all these steps. And yeah, kind of as I mentioned previously, you're able to integrate these post hooks into our API, SDK, and our widget. So yeah, there are multiple solutions out there that exist to kind of do the routing that we do, but we pride ourselves on the flexibility, the speed, and also pricing and coverage, I guess, of the networks we support. So we are the only router that supports connecting the XRP ecosystems. And we also support Bitcoin, Solana, EVM. Not all routers support swaps. So aggregators like LiFi do support swaps, but protocols like Stargate just support bridging. And our kind of flexibility of leveraging both these bridges like Axelar, and then like intent bridging like Coral, combined with our post hooks or our hooks, which aggregate the swaps on either end, allow us to support kind of swaps between chains. And then with Coral, we're able to have the fastest execution time. I've seen even sub 5 seconds. So talking about 1 second between L2s, think about going from like Arbitrum to base, where we're able to execute that cross-chain swap using Coral in about 1 second, which is great. And then lastly, our network support. I think not only the count of networks we support, but also the like breadth in different ecosystems that we interact with really is a testament to our engineering team in terms of like all these different ecosystems that we're able to go into. Um, like for example, you can do a post hook, you can deposit into Mars in the Cosmos ecosystem, which is like a lending protocol. And we have a pretty fast API endpoint. This is able to return these routes in 400 milliseconds or less. I'm able to get like 250 sometimes. And what we mostly pride ourselves on, like at the bottom, like at the end of the day, the bottom line is our security. We've had 0 hacks, and that's why Axelar is our like main infrastructure partner, is because they are the most secure, uh, decentralized like messaging, cross-chain messaging layer. Yeah. And so I think at this point, I'm going to take you guys through how to kind of get started with Squid, the resources we have available, and going to share some of these links with you guys. It's really easy to kind of go through this. You can go to docs.squidrouter.com. There's some really easy integration guides, but I'm going to take you through some of the support materials we have to allow you guys to integrate cross-chain swaps for whatever project you might be working on. So Austin, I think I'm going to share a different screen now.
All right, perfect. You should just be able to, you said the same one? Yeah, you got it.
Cool.
I do have a question here on the side if you want to answer that in the meantime.
Yeah.
So we have, how do you decide between XLR and CCTP when bridging the Noble? Is it like greater than 100,000 USDC, use CCTP, otherwise Axel?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Basically, what we use is whatever is going to give the user the best pricing. So in our backend, we pretty much are calculating all these routes simultaneously, and then we surface whichever one is going to provide the least amount of slippage to that end user. So V1 is CCTP, can take a little bit longer. We may surface that if we see, large slippage when going to, like a Cosmos chain that requires going through like Noble. But we see that it's like, under like 10 to 50,000, we can leverage like an Axel USDC pool on Osmosis. We might go that route using Axelar. But the main factor there is price impact, and that's all calculated in our backend. The user doesn't have to choose which route to use.
Okay, perfect. And then you might have answered this for him because you actually asked it before the stream began, but want to make sure since he asked early, this question gets in here. Hey, Squid team, how do you handle Axelar's 30-minute hard finality and cross-chain messaging time? Waiting for hard finality is a major UX challenge we're currently facing.
Yeah, definitely. So what we're able to utilize is Axelar's express execute function. And what this allows is these transactions pretty much to be settled up front and then paid back. And that takes approximately like, I think it's 30 seconds. I think 22 seconds might be that magic number that we see, but 30 seconds is like pretty safe. And so we utilize their express execute functionality, which kind of allows us to be able to use that 30-minute hard finality as well as kind of like this express execute function.
All right, perfect. Go ahead and pull your screen up here.
Yeah, definitely.
Looks like you're good to go.
Cool. All right. So the first thing you guys are going to need in order to leverage Squid is an integrator ID. And this will be plastered all over our documentation. Um, it's at the very start. It's like, how do I get started? What you're going to need is an integrator ID. And this is our API key. This will allow you to call our endpoints and get routes returned. Um, and also, it's how we control um, what functions and features you have available. So for things like chain flip, which are recent features, those are currently whitelisted functionalities. And when you get your API key, those aren't natively enabled. Basically, what you'll have to do is reach out to the Squid team and we'll enable it for you. And then you can route to like Solana and Bitcoin or from Solana and Bitcoin. Same thing with Coral. We'll be switching that soon where Coral's natively integrated on all integrator IDs. But basically, you walk through this form, tell us what you're working on. We'll send you a key once the form's submitted. And yeah, from there, you can use that. And what I'd recommend most projects doing is adding a widget. And our widgets are super powerful, super customizable. And that's kind of where I want to walk through next. Um, and pretty much what I recommend doing is taking an integrator ID, coming to our widget studio, and this you can see is where like the widget that we have on the front of our app, you guys get access to as well. And you're able to customize the UI, highly customizable, change colors, text, pretty much anything on this that you want. And also can test transactions. So I'll walk through some like highlights of the widget. One, we have, all of the native chains that we support, and we also pull your users' balances in. We have ways where you can customize the configuration. So if you only want certain networks to show up on the source or destination, you can do that. You can do that at the token level as well. And yeah, that's probably one feature that's like really useful for token projects is like, they're like, we only want users to be able to swap to our token. You can do that. That's really easy. And that's all detailed in our documentation. So when you're going through the widget, we have a customization guide, which tells you all about the features in our config that you can modify. So for example, default chains and tokens. This kind of walks you through like that customizability, what chains you want to show, how to set initial assets. Here are the default tokens per chain, and then what chains and tokens you want visible if you only want limited ones. But yeah, so that's how you'll set up your widget. And I think I should show you guys how to execute a transaction. So, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but some features and functions to highlight is if users want to be able just to focus on dollar amounts, they can switch to that rather than token amount. That's really easy to do. Let's say, they're going USDT to USDC, but maybe they want to go the other way. It's really easy to flip that. And as you can see, the route loads almost instantly. And then if the user wants to look at what's going on throughout this route before they execute it, they can see that. So for example, in this route, we're going to pay 1 USDT. And here's kind of like that pre-hook. We're leveraging our aggregator to swap from USDT to USDC. We're using our Coral bridging layer. And then from there, the user actually receives that USDC on base. So I'll go ahead and execute this transaction. My wallet's popping up asking me to approve this swap. I am confirming it. Just submitted the transaction. And now I can see payout USDT on Arbitrum. And my computer is starting to lag a little bit, but in real time, this is super smooth. And you can see it monitors each step. And as we can see, the swap is complete. It's saying 14 seconds, but realistically, from the time I actually hit swap, I would say is probably around like less than 10. So that's kind of an example transaction that's leveraging Coral. It kind of shows you the steps. And if a user wants to click into any of these transactions, they can. And then, so yeah, that's kind of the widget and the functionality we have there. When you want to export, like when you're happy with the customization you've done to the widget, there are a couple different things you can do. You can come up here to the code editor and actually customize it here as well, and then export the code. Or you can just copy and paste it into your widget config. So yeah, that kind of highlights the widget. The next thing I want to highlight is our API and SDK. And again, we have documentation that kind of walks through these and have code examples. But most importantly, what we have is our examples repo. Sorry. And that's linked in the documentation as well. So in our examples repo, what's super powerful here is we have a bunch of ready to run examples. And this allows users or developers, which is all of you, to come in, grab off the shelf these API calls, the SDK calls, and we have a ton of different ones that you can use, and test the functionality for yourself, and then adapt the code to however you need it in your project. So as you can see, we have routing examples from every different ecosystem that we support: EVM to EVM, Cosmos to EVM, Bitcoin to EVM, Solana to EVM. And then we also have examples where we have our post hooks. So for example, I think this pre-hook is withdrawing from an Aave vault. We also have a post hook example where you deposit into an Aave vault. And we have like the Cosmos post hook examples and how to build that. And this gives like really solid templates to kind of build these API calls. And they're really great to feed into LLMs like ChatGPT, like Claude, and then have them adapt it to whatever needs you have. The one thing I would say when you're sharing these examples with Claude or ChatGPT is sometimes they are using old documentation. So just be aware of what parameters they're adding to your calls, and make sure that they mirror the parameters in some of these examples. So like if we go into the actual script, you'll see if we go down to the call, go further down. Here we go, the parameters here. These are the core parameters you're going to need to set for any call to our route endpoint, which kind of builds that transaction call for you. Sometimes Claude ChatGPT returns other parameters from our older versions. We had a Squid v1. We're now completely on Squid v2. So just pay attention to make sure these are the parameters that are being set. And yeah, I think that kind of gives you guys the toolkit you need to kind of get started integrating Squid, and where our resources lie. I'm constantly in Telegram, so when you create that integrator ID, we have our team spin up a Telegram group. We email you that as well. Join that. Feel free to tag me or any other Squid in that Telegram channel. We'll be happy to answer your questions as you go through your integration process. And
Hey, awesome.
yeah, I think that's all I have for you all today. Hopefully that gives you guys a good understanding of how you can leverage Squid to access liquidity from 100 ecosystems for whatever project you're building.
All right. Thank you so much, Nick. I've always enjoyed any time Squid Router comes out. Like met with Fig before, and I always like you guys over there.
Thanks,
It's
Austin.
always a good energy.
The team is great. I feel very lucky to have joined, and yeah, we look forward to building and connecting more ecosystems. So yeah, it's been really fun.
And then let me just check over here that there wasn't any more questions. Yeah, okay, we're good. Okay, awesome then. In that case, everybody, yeah, thank you for coming out and watching. As always, don't forget to set up like one-on-one calls, check in with us, that sort of thing. There's quite a number of you, so if you need some attention, just reach out, let us know, and we're always there to help. Otherwise, if you want to come back to this recording and rewatch a part of it, maybe you missed the first or whatever, as always, I'll be posting them both in the handbook and in the group chat and on our YouTube channel. So feel free to check them out there. Otherwise, that's it for today, and we'll see you guys at the next one. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.